Coming up next in our celebration of Women's History Month, we have Vera Finley, the multi-talented designer, musician. We've got a video on her coming up for the more continuing celebration of Women's History Month. Let's take a look at it.
I decided when I was quite young that I wanted to do theatrical costume design. So when I was through school, I went and studied in Stockholm, where I lived at the time, at Anders Beckman's art school, which they sort of specify in design. And so I studied there for a while. Then I went to Copenhagen and worked as a milliner, making hats. Everybody wore hats in those days, just to learn the basics of costume making. And I drifted into clothing design for a while, but I really didn't like that too much. Costumes was much more fun. So, of course, then I came over to the States in '47 and married my husband, Al, whom I'd met in Denmark. And we lived in Detroit, and I proceeded to have a bunch of kids, 4 sons, and didn't have time to do much. But I did work with the local Little Theater and did their costuming, and acted in plays, and really got bitten by the bug. In '68, I was making costumes for a children's program. ABC was taping in Detroit at WXYZ, the Children's Story Hour, and I costumed that. And that went on for a couple of years. And then '68, the Muppets came on the scene, and every kid show wanted puppets. They asked me, could I make them? And I lied and said yes. I knew I could if somebody just showed me. And I happened to know a young man, Bob Elnicky, who had worked with Henson, Jim Henson, and he showed me how to make them. And so I did that for a while also. I did figures for several of their shows. And eventually I got so many orders from other people that I decided I could make more money staying home making puppets. And so that's how that started. And then eventually I drifted into the ventriloquist dummy. Pardon me, you're not supposed to say that, figure. The ventriloquist figures. And that was very profitable and an awful lot of fun. And all the time I was taking art lessons from several different people. I wanted to try all the media. I was doing a lot of watercolor and also a lot of acrylics, which I hadn't done before. And then I tried pastels and oils, of course. But I like acrylics. They're so forgiving. If you do anything wrong, you can just change it. It's dry almost instantly. Watercolor is much more difficult. And since I came to Green Spring, I have made puppets, and I have given a puppet class. Aside from that, we have just finished the variety show here, where I made the props, and with a lot of help from my sister and Ginny and Fran, we made the backdrop, which was really quite successful. We did a skyline, the New York skyline. I'd started in costume design, which is a different thing altogether from drawing, because it's more stylized and you have to do, certain techniques, so that the costumer knows what you're intending with your design. I started with that and kept on studying art, and I took courses in tailoring and millinery, everything I could think of to, be able, because you really, to be a good designer, you have to know the construction of the costume. And so that's why I dove into, and then, of course, when I went to Denmark, as I said before, it was a millinery shop, a very lovely one in Copenhagen, and he branched out into clothing, so I did some of that design too. If you think in your mind that you actually can, I knew I could. I had no doubt. So instead of saying no, I said yes. No, I don't think it's smart to lie most of the time. If you say you can do something or you claim you've done something that you haven't, it's going to come out that that you are really fibbing. But I learned. I'd made a couple of puppets with Bob Elnicki, and then I knew it's not that complicated. I think probably the one I made for a guy who still is on television. He had a show here in Washington that was televised on the comedy channel. His name is Jeff Dunham, and he uses a puppet called Walter, and another one called Peanut. So Peanut was probably my most famous puppet. He's been he's been used for, gosh, I don't know how long. Who wants to be an artist? Well, keep on working with, take as many different teachers' lessons as you can. There are always available at schools and other places where you can learn your trade, and also just keep on painting. You learn from your own mistakes, and just keep on painting in anything you want. My son does beautiful work he uses art paper and puts them together like puzzles, raised up. Isn't that beautiful? All these pieces are cut out in cardboard and layer with foam underneath, so that when you see it, it has a 3D effect almost. And he's getting better and better. This was one of his first things he did, and what he's doing now is so superior. You really teach yourself most of what you accomplish, I think.
It's a small world after all. It's a small world after all. It's a small.
As I said, I think I'll dig them out and do another show.
Great.
Yep,
Thank you.
everybody seems to enjoy it.